welcome. We have got an awesome panel here today. We're going to be running through 10 tracks. We haven't been given the artist names. It's completely anonymous. And then we're going to be doing some listening feedback as well. So we've been given these really fun wireless headphones, and we're all going to be listening to these together. But to start off the panel, my name is Cobb. I'm the founder of Music Industry Mentor. It's an online artist development and coaching platform. I offer free music industry advice as well on TikTok and Instagram under Music Industry Mentor. So if you want free game, that's where to hang out and hit me up. And we'll pass it over to the rest of my lovely panel to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Katherine Cantwell. I work for the record label Heavenly Recordings, where I'm a social media manager for the label. I also help artists with their social media and content plans, as well as wearing numerous other hats within the record label, as I have been with Heavenly for 12 years now. Aside from that, I've also done some mentoring with Launchpad Leeds, and also been part of the inaugural Amplify apprenticeship scheme, where I manage and have managed an apprentice for the last 2 years who's now become a full team member at the company.
That's impressive. My name is Christella Litras. I'm a composer, a musical director, a vocal arranger, and creative director of a charity called Music House. That's me.
So my name is Aziza Jaye, and I'm a singer, songwriter, producer, and I front a band called Nubian Twist, and I also work with Mungo's Hi-Fi and do my own little bits on the side as well.
All right, beautiful. Okay, so we're going to put some headphones on now. Disco touch to this. This is fun. I've never done that before. All right, guys. So, first question of feedback on: what are your thoughts on the songwriting, the lyrics, or the melody of this track? I'm gonna free for all this for any of you. So, anyone, just feel free to dive in.
Yeah, I really loved the storytelling aspect of that song. It was something I could get immersed in. I could close my eyes and then envisage, have a picture of what it could have looked like. So it was really beautiful songwriting for me.
It had some sort of, themes of feminism, motherhood and childhood in there from what I heard. So again, I could sort of picture a storytelling, a life storytelling. I could picture almost sort of a short film or video to accompany it as well.
The track's fantastic, and I felt that the band were tight. Sounds like it was live, instruments recorded. So I like the drum dynamics as well, and the flow, the way it started. It journeyed so beautifully. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did sort of feel that as a journey storytelling track, it probably lacked some kind of radio hook. In terms of, I think this is like an introduction to an album, and it's something that would have sort of more depth to it than a sort of 3.5 minute radio single. I can imagine that it lends itself much better to the world of video and sort of online visual content.
Yeah, I was going to say that, sort of picking up on that, this song feels very strong for sync. And that, especially the build and of that, even if it's just the instrumental as well. So
it's nice
really
to
solid.
hear a violin, to have its moment. So it's just good to have that instrumental breakdown and respect for that instrument as well.
Yeah. Further to add to that, I did actually write that I was like, once it dropped, I wanted that intensity for longer. Do you know what I mean? I was like, it's all right, to leave people wanting more, but I want more, now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very cinematic as well as one of the words that I'd written down about that, but yeah.
Nice. Okay, so if we were to put an artist such as this on tour with anyone, any artist come to mind who you think could be a good support slot for?
I mean, it kind of, for me, fell into the sort of Laura Marley and Nadia Reid sort of world. But perhaps, a bit of Jessica Pratt in there as well. It definitely wasn't just a singer-songwriter track. Like you say, there was a sort of violin in there. There was that cinematic sound in there. So I think, yeah, artists that sort of have depth, like have more depth to their musicianship and songwriting.
Shall we move on to track 2? Yeah, we all good for now? All right, track 2. Headphones, please. Little folky-ish number there. Okay, so in terms of production-wise, is there anything you would add or maybe do differently?
I really like this track, and I felt the pedal point that ran throughout the track. There was this this riff that ran all the way through, and everything worked around this riff. And I liked how the vocals were panned. I think it was the second verse. You heard it, literally it was so present. You hear one voice come in on the left, one on the right, and then it just becomes full, and then everything just builds. I loved it. I put futuristic folk. I don't know if that makes sense.
It's funny, I literally spoke about the panning as well. I was like, oh, it feels like I'm like getting a little whisper in the ear. It felt really intimate at that point. And I love a lilt. I love like Irish lilting. And I felt like that it was almost like, because I do like live looping as well, and it was like that kind of riff that happened at the beginning then just ran through the track. It was really catchy. And I think it got sort of midway for me, and the bass I felt like could have just had a little bit more of melodic variety, just to give it that bounce, because I felt like the drums were really hard hitting, almost like dubstep-esque. So I felt like I wanted the bass just to like tease me a little bit. But yeah, I love that one.
Nice. Katherine?
Yeah, I really, I didn't quite put futuristic folk, but which I like. But yeah, I just liked the abstract, modern folk sounding nature to it. It mixed that sort of traditional folk music with modern music really well. But I completely agree with you, and I couldn't word it in the way that you did, in that I can really hear that dance bass element to it, and that could have been propelled even further, I think. There's certainly like options for remixes on that one as well. Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun as well, and music is meant to be fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you're not having fun, what you doing? Yeah. Okay, sweet. So, if you were to take this song to, say, radio or press, what would you do with it? Any ideas? Is it suitable for that arena?
I'd say it's definitely suitable for. I mean, there's so much going on in the world at the moment in terms of, the Irish lilting thing's definitely making a bit of a comeback. You've got bands like Broadside Hacks that are sort of tapping into the futuristic folk world really well. I think that songs like this tell a story again, and it's probably come from some sort of family history or some sort of background. It instantly makes me want to not only have a bop, but want to know more about where all of those elements have come from and why.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think, storytelling as well is becoming more and more popular, especially through social media, which is such a huge channel for discovery now. And I think, if you have a song that conveys a story, I think that's a great opening to being able to create a load of short form content about that, which all helps, just keep amplifying what the lyrics are about, where your song has come from, your real lived in experiences.
Definitely.
I think.
And I can sort of picture this being mixed in with sort of animations, or, having like an illustrator alongside it or something like that. I certainly pictured like futuristic elements mixed in with some of the more traditional elements as well. But yeah, I don't think you write a song like that not envisioning how that would play out otherwise.
Yeah,
I kind of like saw an advert, like when you're watching telly and it's like a tourism advert, like visit Ireland. It's like, I would want to go.
Okay.
Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
little sync number. Okay. Yeah. All right. Get pitching for Tourism Island. Nice. All right. Sweet. Okay, let's move on to track 3. Let's put on the headphones. Okay, so in terms of production, but maybe even more, let's maybe more focus on the vocal production for this one. How are we feeling about that? We got any notes to add?
For me, I wanted to hear the voice more. So I felt like the sound was all quite close, and I understand with band and live elements, it is quite hard to create that space, but I felt like it was quite warm and close, and I wanted the voice to be there and the instruments to be a little bit more surrounding rather than so close to the voice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes
Yeah, it does.
sense.
Yeah.
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 I totally agree with you. I felt the energy's there, definitely, and there's some beautiful dynamics. The band are working well together. It'd be nice if the music created this bed for this voice to kind of lie on in it. I lost some of the lyrics. Just the actual diction of it, I couldn't really hear the words that clearly.
Sure. Okay.
The actual energy of the song, it's got loads of potential. I also felt the pitching, I think the vocalist pitching was slightly out in places, but these things you can easily fix and you can work on, so it's not massive criticism.
Yeah, okay. Nice.
I kind of felt, similarly, I felt the vocal needed to be lifted up. But this track did really grow on me over time, because it did have that sort of warm, sort of early, sort of indie rock and roll feel to it, but with a sort of more shoegazy lilt to it. But yeah, it just needed to be tightened up and made a little bit brighter.
Yeah, okay. Tightening up, brighter on the production. So, okay, throw this one out for you guys. I know a lot of artists at the moment, they drop multiple versions of the same song. And they do it to essentially boost their monthly listeners on Spotify, create further traffic to the original main song. Anything initially comes to mind after hearing that song? If you were to make an alternative version, what route would you go down? Would you do maybe like
Acoustic.
Nice.
It, yeah.
Yeah.
A guitar
Strip it all back.
and a voice.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. The story sounded really personal. It sounded like that personal conflict that we have inside of us, and it's like without the rest of it, I would still feel that, but just maybe more.
Segueing over from that, that's kind of leaning into a little bit more on the marketing side of things. How would you market this song?
It does have a sort of slightly commercial indie sound to it, so I do actually think this track could work at radio if some of those changes were made. You know, it's got that sort of verse, chorus, verse thing going on with interesting elements. So I think if it was brighter, it would sound great on the radio, and there would be a story to tell as well.
Track 4. Okay, let's go. So, in terms of the structure, any notes on that at all? Any feedback in general structure?
I felt like it was really like radio friendly. Yeah. Like you can hear it in a lot of spaces already. It was one of them things for me where it's like, oh, first 30 seconds, you're like, oh, have I heard this before? Do you know what I mean? It was like something
like
that
I
should have heard already.
Yeah.
Stunning vocal performance, like really, really beautiful vocals. Like I feel like I don't know if it was like, it sounds like one of them things, you know, like when you see people vocally producing a track and they're doing it line by line just to like convey the emotion.
Little
of the
Ariana-esque.
lyrics. I feel like that like hit proper slapped.
Nice.
Yeah, lovely.
Anything you would change, or do you have any feedback on the structure?
I think the voice was stunning. Beautiful voice.
Super crisp.
I felt like it was really catchy, very commercially viable as well, in a good way. There's one thing for me that I would probably take out.
Yep.
But that's just my preference.
Go for it. Yeah.
22 seconds in, there's a snare drum that goes.
Right.
There's like a riff, a snare pattern. I wasn't sure why it was there. But besides that, love the tracks, love the dynamics, love the drops, love how present the voice is, love the arrangement.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Anything you would change? Anything else In terms of, if you were to send this off to any sort of mixing, mastering?
I made a note that as stunning as the vocal is, it was a little bit loud.
Right.
And I felt like there was like, I think within the first minute, there was like a synth that came in and it was really emotive. And I felt like had that have been a little bit louder, it would just really like pull on the heartstrings in that time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. If you were to focus on one element, say we're moving into the marketing sphere, and you had to choose between radio, press, putting together a live strategy, or leaning more towards social media, where do you think this song would excel the most in?
Radio and live for me, definitely. Like, again, I think the vocal was really, really strong. But yeah, it totally had that sound of it had what I would call the 2024 sound. Like, it had that sort of
very current.
It had the big pop star sound that is obviously very popular at the moment. But I thought that, it was. I can imagine that the voice behind that is probably someone that's very energetic on stage as well.
Track 5. Okay, we're almost halfway. I think we're doing okay for time. Trying to do the math as I go. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, general notes.
Yeah, like my first thing was like, it's proper groovy. And yeah, I wrote down that I wanted a little more dynamic variation, whether that would be instrumentally or vocally or both. Just a little bit more of a sonic journey. And I love the use of a very popular term that we all say, because like I was like, oh, like writing one of them songs with like something that just everybody says, and then when you try and say that, you can't think of it. And I'm like, hate to admit it, that is one. And I'm just like, for me, that's very clever, and that style of songwriting makes it very relatable and easy to connect with, just because it's something that we've all heard and said before.
Had that instant head bobbing.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
It had that sort of modern jazz feel. I think there were some production elements that perhaps were a little off kilter in parts. I thought the vocal was a little bit quiet in parts and possibly needed just a bit more clarity.
I felt this track had a classic feel to it. It reminded me of like Randy Crawford, Street Life, like with a twist of Mochiba. That was just when I heard it, because I love Mochiba anyway. The vocals were very relaxed and controlled, but I agree in terms of the production. The chord progression was great. I like a good chord progression, and had it for me.
Do you choose this as an album opener, a closer, or a key middle track?
I would probably choose it as a key middle track. I think it's kind of it's got a level of. I think if you like it builds up, but it's certainly not a single for me. But again, I think it's got that sort of relatable lyrics that it's a good touch point, and I think the instruments on it as well can it lends itself to different. Without talking about playlists, it's a big part of what we do at Heavenly for Labels, is trying to get on these playlists and all the work that goes into that. And I'm not saying that artists should write music for playlists specifically, but this track, as well as being on an album, would lend itself to some of the more working from home playlists, or calm music before you go to bed playlists. And I know that sounds a bit lame, but I think along with that, releasing tracks that are on an album that are not singles makes you, you're more dynamic as an artist if there is variation and they're not all single tracks. And I think this one sounds like a variation track to me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also worth knowing as well is, even if you release a song and it's not necessarily a single, you can still pitch it for
Yeah,
playlist.
so in our artists, the tracks that are singles are not necessarily their favourite tracks, and it is that album track. And I think the one good thing about this playlist and pitching thing is the release of what they call these instant IG tracks, because it does allow the artist to release the track they like ahead of the album, and it tells that broader story that they want to tell.
All right, so let's head over to track 6. What's going on production-wise? So let's dig into that. Any feedback at all across production or structure, songwriting?
For me, it was like the entrance just was like, I'm hooked. Like, it was a really beautiful start for that song. And it was, in the first minute, there was so much dynamic in it that it's like, oh, well, it's taken me all these places already. Where else could we possibly go? And I felt like the mix was really good. And I loved the bridge section as well. And super clever use of group vocals and harmonies. The group vocals, like just that kind of chanty, energetic thing. I just thought that was pretty genius, to be honest.
I really, really, really like this song. Mm-hmm. It's a feel-good song. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of almost like as a reference, Pink stroke Gwen Stefani kind of energy. The production was great. Just loved the whole track. Agree with what you said. You know, you hit the first minute, just captures you. Where else can it go? And it did. It just kept evolving. Mm-hmm. Loved it. Wanted to hear it again.
Yeah.
I thought it was instantly catchy as well. It gave me sort of good pop vibes, but with that extra sort of empowerment attached to it. Like you say, it's sort of a more alternative pop, but an artist that really knows what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of live and the live setup, how would you really kind of envision if you were kind of building a live show for this song? How would you put together that band setup, instrumentation, dynamics of the live show? What would you do with it?
It's funny because as you asked that, the thing that I was seeing is like some big stage production, like all the lights, all of the platforms, like, you know, some like, I don't know if it would be pink,
fire
but
cannons.
Like some pinky purple kind of visuals, and just, you know, it was like it sounds like it should be a big stage production.
World class. It's a big statement, but that's how I felt.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so a song that would be suited for those bigger arenas and theatres, and where you can, don't skimp on backing vocalists. Maybe try and rearrange the budget to save, maybe have a drummer kind of triggering things. But nice. Okay, so track 6. 7. Yes. Yeah, 7. Okay. Any mix notes for this one at all?
Tiny bit too tinny for me, and it just very slightly sort of metallic in sound.
Yeah.
We need to hear the vocals more. I felt it was a bit too busy for a lot of time. Felt like it needed the dynamics, input of dynamics for the vocal. That vocal was just stunning.
It felt like the instruments were the main event.
Yep.
After the first section, so like coming back in after the first dropout, it was really nice to hear like full voice. And then when them ad-libs come in, I was just like, oh God, like I want that like in my ears.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just put, it's a musically rich piece, like, you know, one for the musos, like all like nerdy muso people, but like, oh God, like, doing all of the shifts with the timing and everything. Yeah, I just felt like, the musos where you see them like in the crowd. Like, I would be doing that.
It's kind of a little reminiscent of, say, Jeff Buckley is kind of what I got from that. But yeah,
I
so
kind of had the sort of last dinner party and know
Yeah.
me sort of feeling about it, and that it's definitely not something that is commercially popular necessarily, but it would certainly stand up in the more theatrical lane.
yeah, and it sounds like live could be quite a huge factor for this sort of artist, this type of song.
think
Where would
live
you
would
maybe
be a
place
mix.
them?
Yeah, I mean, again, when you look at these artists, they tend to have about sort of 6 or 7 or 8, 9 plus band members, which is great. Not so much for the band manager, but yeah, it would have to be performed with everybody. But again, as we sort of said earlier, I think with big productions like this, there is an option to strip things back as well. And give it, you know, if you were to do an album, or you were to, you know, say add bonus tracks to an album, then there are options there. But yeah, it's certainly a popular genre right now, I would say.
Yeah. Do you see this being more of a standalone single, focus single, or more maybe of an album track?
Again, I sort of had album introduction track to it, you know, something that again would probably be accompanied by some sort of short film or some sort of introduction as to who the band were, what they were doing, but no, it wouldn't be a radio track for me.
Got you. Okay. All right. Track 8. So, any feedback across structure or lyrics or performance?
Yeah, I thought like it was a really inviting, soulful start. I was like, oh, don't touch me like that. And I loved the content. Like I personally would be like, I listen to a lot of what they call high vibe music. And there's like playlists on Spotify, and I just thought, oh, that would be one of those. Like, you know, just really nice, like empowering and raw at the same time. I felt like the vocals were a little bit dry. Like I wanted a bit more effects on the vocals just to kind of like match the ambience of the instruments. Yeah, but I really enjoyed how refreshing it was to hear something that's like, you know, I could say that to myself one of these days if I felt like, do you know what I mean? Like I should be saying these things to myself. So it was nice to be told it and feel that.
Nice groove, beautiful voice, diction was clear, obviously the soulful tone. I also like the call and response between the singer and the backing vocals, that was good. The storytelling aspect of it. And the chord progression, I love, here we go again.
You love a chord progression.
Chord progression was wicked.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the song.
Nice. Great.
Felt that the vocal could have been a touch louder in the mix.
Okay.
Maybe a bit more reverb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really found like a lot of strength in this song. I sort of, again, the sort of powerful lyrics really stood out to me. It had that sort of cheeky, sassy groove, which sort of, made me want to just sort of get up and get going. And then I also sort of wrote down that it was just quite striking in a way. Lyrically, it felt like there was an awful lot of emotion in it.
Yeah, okay. So lyrically or production-wise, would you say this has got a decent shot going in for film or TV sync at all? Or would you maybe steer clear of that?
TikTok.
TikTok, you're feeling it for TikTok?
Yeah, just like that's the message. Like I feel like people need to hear that. And social media would be a brilliant way, like, you know, just when you see people singing the same song just in different locations, and they might have like 30 videos, same part of the song, but like different visuals. I just thought that that'd be, just what the people need.
I put great set of social media assets could be made alongside this one as well.
Yeah. So you would lean more into the story, the message elements of it?
It's definitely a forward-facing track as well. Like if the artist can write lyrics like that, I can imagine that the artist doesn't mind doing that in front of a camera. And I love that idea of different locations. Like I think there's a lot of visuals you can play with those lyrics, but it would be an in-person thing, not something that was off-kilter or animated. Sure.
Track 9. interesting track. Structure, vocal delivery, mixed notes. What are you all feeling on this one?
It journeys beautifully. The band are wicked. The singer's amazing. As it builds, I think that the singer's level should build as well, because the band, it's got this natural development and growth, but it feels like the singer is almost getting left behind, just level-wise, not energy. The energy's great. There's a track called You Waited by an artist called Travis Green. It's actually a gospel track, and there's a rhythm in this piece we just heard, it's in that track.
Yep.
And I love it so much because it gives you that kind of bass, that kick drum that goes
Yep.
and it just makes you, it just pulls you, and I love all of that. Also, there's a genius piano riff at 128. We heard it actually, and it's just this beautiful piano riff.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to hear more vocals. It is a wicked piece. And yeah, it was nice when the instruments were a bit lower, that the voice just really shone, and I just wanted it to grow, just in volume. And it really gave me like an uplifting feeling, and I had that kind of thing of like, I could be crying and listen to that, and it had just helped me get the emotions out, but then it would bring me back as well. Like one of them songs you can listen to when you're high, you can listen to it when you're low, and it just, it'll go with whatever the feeling is, but bring you back round.
So are we feeling this is more kind of single-worthy, pitch-worthy, album-led track? What are we thinking, Katherine?
I mean, again, that it is definitely a longer track. So if it was to have radio time, it may need a radio edit. That said, I can imagine that it does have that one-off sound where one or two DJs may well turn around and be like, yeah, we are actually going to play the whole thing. I think, like exactly as these guys said, I think if it was a little bit less busy instrumentally in parts and you brightened up the vocal, I would say it's got a good shot.
Over to the last track 10. Okay, all right. So, any particular feedback across production or lyrical elements?
It was really emotive and raw, and I feel like it brings up a lot of feelings that people will have felt, like, so it's easy to connect with. I thought that the harmonies could have been used a bit more sparingly. It felt like, like a highlighter pen, like you wouldn't highlight the whole book, you'd just pick out certain bits. And I thought that the vocals dynamically could have probably took more of a climb. It felt like it was one level, and then the big part at the end was really big, but it might have been nice to hear some hints of where it could go a bit sooner.
Started very stripped, and as it progressed, it got busier, and I felt at the end I wanted it to end where it begins. So it just strip it right down to vocal and guitar. I also felt, by the way, the voice was great, fantastic, beautiful song. I think the rhythm, the timing of the drums felt like they weren't completely in the meter. Didn't sit right. There were like 3 moments in the track that they weren't kind of in time.
Right.
That's all. These things are fixable.
Yep.
I said similarly, like I thought it was really engaging from the off. Again, because I found the lyrics really emotive. It did to me have that slightly unfinished feel to it.
Yep.
And I don't mean that it wasn't a fully formed song. I just feel like this artist is very much on a journey, and I'm just not sure that they're quite there yet.
Sure. Okay. And last question from me. If you were to pitch this artist to support any other artists or any other festivals, or maybe even if you're pitching to playlists, anything come to mind as to who you'd sort of partner them up with?
You could go along the more sort of folky elements, so that would sort of be like things like Deer Shed Festival up here, or perhaps some of the more smaller folk festivals. But there is also a slightly more pop indie element, which would probably be like your End of the Road Festival or Green Man Festival.
I think that's all the feedback for all 10 tracks. How to pitch to industry, how to send demos to industry professionals.
How would we do that?
I'll tell you how. I will tell you how, Aziza. Bullet point answer. I would refrain from sending attachments. I get many attachments. I don't know if you get people still attaching things. My inbox is fighting for its life on storage. I'm paying the top price for cloud storage. And so making emails with no attachments, gold star, just hyperlink things. One of my favorite hack is if you pitch and you use a one sheet. So that's literally just one page. You don't need to send me a 20-page EPK for your life story. Hold that for later. Just one page. I tell the artists that I work with to use it and design it on Canva. And then you can share a public link to the same Canva, because you're always going to keep updating that one sheet. So if you pitch out to someone 6 months ago and they open that email up, because people always are doing that, getting back to emails months ago, they click on the link to that one sheet, they're always going to see the most up-to-date version. So it also helps you out as well. So if you send links instead of attachments, it means they're always going to access the most up-to-date information. So always double-check your links are accessible as well. The amount of times I get sent a Google Drive and then I have to go request access, and you do this whole thing. And then before you know it, someone's moved on to the next thing. So that's really important. Also double-check all your social media links. Make it easy for the reader to get the information that they need. So that's a big one. In the body of the email, again, even if the information is in your one sheet, I would always include highlights to key stats and facts within the body of the email. Never presume someone's actually going to click on the link. So ideally cover a range of things as you can. You may not have a huge social media following, but if you've grown by like 50% in the last month, and that might only be like you've only got like 5 followers this last month, but if you can always look at percentages, if you may not be able to boast like, we got 1,000 followers this month, if you've grown by like 50%, then whack that in there as well. So you can always do a bit of tweaking as well in terms of any key stats and facts to help you out when it comes to pitching to industry. But I tend to always lead with a very personal line for everyone that I pitch out to. No copy and paste emails. This is a human to human business. So I always like to do a lot of personal research on who I'm pitching to. Go through their socials, stalk them a little bit in a non-weird way, and I'll just be like, hey, Aziza, congrats on the latest release, insert the title track. Or, hey, I just saw that you played that recent show at blah, blah, blah festival. I actually went to that as well. That's what, keep it very personal, and then immediately if I see that, it shows that like you actually kind of care and you do generally want to work with us because you've already shown a bit of interest, rather than a copy and paste, hey there, please sign me, hey there, I need this from you. So always lead with a very personal touch. Give us a nice bit of bullet points, stats and facts, highlight any key info, link us to the goods. And that's a SoundCloud streaming link or a disco streaming link, make it accessible, no downloads, no attachments, and then a link to your one sheet or socials or something like that, all right? That's how I would go about it. Make sense? Feeling good? Great. All right, guys, thanks, Leeds. Thank you, everyone. Well done. Thanks, guys.